this has got my attention. And I'm watching, it keeps getting closer. It was far away, but it starts getting closer and closer. And I'm just like, what the heck? And I'm just focused in on it. And all of a sudden, it seems to get so close. It's like, we're going to hit it. And I grab the yoke and kick it off of autopilot. And, Jason, becomes alert and looks over at me. And I said, look. And I was just getting ready to turn the plane, which you don't do unless you have an emergency at the highest level of the sport that you love. It's very euphoric, and there's nothing else like it.
The following is a conversation with NASCAR legend Mark Martin. Mark is known as one of the most consistent and respected drivers in the sport's history. His career spanning over 3 decades, winning multiple cups, he has around 49 wins in what is now known as the Xfinity Series. He scored over 40 Cup Series wins and has 5 IROC Championships, which is the International Race of Champions, more than any other driver. Mark has left an incredible mark on the world of motorsports, and whilst we discuss some of Mark's motorsport history, because I'm a big motorsport geek and because I had the opportunity to, so I took it, we also dive deep into Mark's UFO sighting back in 1999, piloting his jet, having a very close encounter with what would probably be referred to as a Foo Fighter UFO these days. It was a huge pleasure and privilege indeed. So, the following is a conversation with Mark Martin. Mark, thank you so much for joining me. I really, really do appreciate your time. If it's okay, I've got obviously I want to get into the UFO subject, but I've got a NASCAR legend in front of me, so I kind of want to ask a couple of questions there, if that's okay. Do you mind?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. What was it that first got you into racing cars? I mean, where did you ever been able to trace it back to, like, your first interest?
Yeah. Trace it back to my father and I both. My dad was my hero, and he was very mechanical minded, had a trucking company, and loved all things fast and wild. And so I came up, under him kind of the same way. And he took me to races, all different kinds of races. And in 1973, the last race of the season, out by the dirt track by our hometown, we were out there in the pits, and I just looked at him and I said, let's build me one of these things for next year. And so we started building a car over the winter, and that's where it all started.
Wow. What does it feel like? I mean, it's this high octane. I mean, not many people are going to experience that. Maybe fighter pilots, and what does it feel like?
I was kind of an oddball kid, in school. I guess I was kind of equal to everybody else in grade school. But once we started middle school, most of my friends played sports. And, then all the cheerleaders were hot after them and everything else. And I couldn't play. I was little, short, small, and wasn't any good. I tried playing, wasn't any good. And so, I never really, through those years, I didn't really find my passion. And I like to ride motorcycles, and I like watching fast cars run and stuff like that. But when I got behind the wheel, I knew that this was it, that this was my special talent. And everyone has that, and many people have multiple special talents. But for me, I've got really one, and that was driving. And so it feels incredible to be good at something, and it feels even more euphoric to be really good at something, like to win at the at the highest level of the sport that you love. It's very euphoric, and there's nothing else like it.
Did you ever, did you have like any sort of superstitions, and did you do anything to sort of prepare for it? Was there anything that, I know that some people have like I don't know, a lucky charm or something. Other people have some meditation that they do beforehand. Did you ever do anything to sort of prepare yourself for like
No,
the big races?
I did kind of have a routine, but it was sort of a scheduled routine of how my race day went. And it uh, entailed hospitality with sponsors and or fans and that kind of thing, and going to the drivers' meeting and then having my meal real quick, that kind of thing. But I didn't really have any superstitions. I was never afraid of number 13, which you never see a race car hardly ever with number 13 on it. Peanuts didn't bother me. Green, I didn't get that. I knew a couple of cars that were green that won NASCAR races all the time. So that really wasn't what I did have a fan give me a lucky penny once, and I was needing some luck. So I taped that to the dash for a few weeks, but not really any superstitions.
Okay, interesting. Interesting. It's fascinating. Absolutely. What a fascinating life you've led. When I saw I saw an article pop up with your name and kind of a rough idea of your incident back in, I think it was the 90s, wasn't it? And I just thought I need to talk to Mark, not just because obviously I love talking to anybody that's had any kind of a sighting or experience or whatever, but I'm like, just that lifestyle, just that, I don't know, it's fascinating. It's so different, so far advanced from anything that I've ever done. Yeah, incredible. What a life. Okay, sorry, that's just me geeking out there for a second. Can we jump into this UFO case then? Was this in the 90s? Am I right in thinking late 90s?
Yes, it was either the end of 98 or early in 99, and I suspect it was early 99. Never told the story other than to my friends and family. And when this came up a few weeks ago, because it's been a while, sometimes you can convince yourself that these details don't sound logical. And so I checked with my pilot at the time, and I said, do you remember that incident? And he said, yeah, what was that? And so the story's real. I have a very good cooperation with someone that saw it with me, and so I can tell the story of what happened if you want.
Yeah, let's do it. Yes, please. Jump in, please.
So we were coming home. Well, we flew on the racing circuit. You had to have just about had to have a private plane. I had a private little jet, and I had learned to fly it. And so typically after a race, 500 miles or whatever, I would ride in the back and just relax and let my pilot fly home. And I usually fly to the race and personal appearances. A lot of times I didn't bring a pilot with me because it was a single pilot aircraft. And so, but on this particular day, for some reason, we were coming from the Northeast, let's say New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, one of those races up there. And for some reason, I felt like flying. And so I got up in the pilot's seat, and Jason got in the right seat, and we head out, and of course we fly at over 40,000 feet. But we lived in Daytona Beach at a fly-in community where you could land the plane and taxi the plane right to your house. And the hangar was attached to the house, and you just pull it in like you would your car in your garage. We came and went awful lot. So that was really handy. So, we're flying along around Jacksonville. They always descended you down. You had to cross Jacksonville around 18,000 feet, descending into Daytona. And it was dark. It was later, like I'm going to say 11 o'clock, 11 p.m., something like that. So it was dark, really dark. And there was cloud cover up really high. So it was blocking the stars. So the only lights you saw were Orlando, Daytona Beach, and you could see all the way to Miami, of course. Miami lit up down there at the tip. And we're descending, and, Jason is just goofing off over there. You fly the plane flies on autopilot anyway. So, the pilots manipulates the computer, and Jason was just fiddling around over there. And I see this light up ahead, and it's above Miami lights. So, like, it's not on the ground, because, you can see where the sky starts above Miami. Of course, it's black, but it's a light. And first thing I start doing is looking at the light to see if there's flashing, because aircraft have strobe lights as well as landing lights. You might see a landing light that would be solid white, but as you got closer, you would see either a strobe, or even closer yet, you would see on each wing. On the right wing, there was like a green type light wingtip, and on the left wing, it would be a red light. And that way you pilots know if the aircraft's coming toward you or going away. This had none of that. And I keep kind of my eye on it. Air traffic control separates us 10 miles or 1,000 feet above or below. So you don't really have to watch that much for traffic, but this has got my attention, and I'm watching. It keeps getting closer. It was far away, but it starts getting closer and closer. And, I'm starting to really analyze this, because all it is a bright white light, and it keeps getting closer and closer. And over a period of time, it gets really close, and I'm just like, what the heck? And I'm just focused in on it. And all of a sudden, it seems to get so close. It's like, we're going to hit it. Wow. And I grab the yoke and kick it off of autopilot. And, Jason, becomes alert and looks over at me. And I said, look. And I was just getting ready to turn the plane, which you don't do unless you have an emergency. You don't vary off your instrument flight plan. And I kicked it off of autopilot, was getting ready to turn, and he saw it too, and he reached in his flight bag and pulled out a camera. Just, it was before iPhones and camera phones. He had one in his flight bag. He pulled out a camera, and he leaned up there to the windshield and snapped it. Of course, it had a flash, so the picture just, when it got developed, it was just a white flash. Reflection off the windshield. So you didn't see anything, but, all this stuff confirmed what I was seeing. And then it starts slowly going away, and so I reconnect the autopilot, and we get on the radio and we ask them, because now it's not a threat anymore. It seems to be moving away from us. And we get on with air traffic control, Jacksonville Center. And, we said, ask them, is there any aircraft? We'd seen something, and was there anything? And Jack Center's like, no, there's nothing between you and Orlando. And so we're still not convinced of it. And as this light continues, it's many minutes. It's taking a while from the time it started getting closer to us, like we were going to converge, to the time it's accelerating away from us. We're doing 450 miles an hour, and it's going away now. I couldn't, it was a bright light. So, and it was dark out. So I didn't see any structure, just the light. But as it pulls away and we're continue to descend down toward Daytona, they hand us off to Daytona approach. And we ask the same thing. We've seen something up here. Is there, do you have anything? There's nothing between you and Orlando, man. Nothing, because it was late at night. There weren't many aircraft out. And as we descended down, it's going away, and we descend down into Daytona Beach, and on into our approach and landing. And, it's just, it's hard to, it's hard to describe. It was just, we know we saw something.
Yeah.
And we know that air traffic control didn't have it on radar. Now, I don't know what it was, but I do know it was not a reflection. I mean, we're pilots. I've got almost 4,000 hours flying. Sometimes, lights or reflections or this or that. I mean, this was something that I had someone else see it as well and thought it was there enough that he pulls a camera out and tries to get it on camera. So it was really a strange occurrence. Never had that ever happen again, but it was real, whatever it was.
Wow, that's incredible. Incredible. Did you have,
And
sorry.
and the thing is, the way it moves, that it defies our conventional. I mean, think this is not 2020. This was 99, so it was a long time ago. But certainly the way it moved would defy what we think, what we know of. There's probably a lot of things that we don't know as citizens or whatever, as individuals, but it defied the logic, for it to be able to not be on radar, to come that close that I almost jerked the airplane, to going away from us again when we're doing 450 miles an hour or so. Defies anything that I am aware of.
Yeah, and it wouldn't make sense to to have. I mean, if you had a secret military technology, for example, to go and mess around with a private jet. I mean, a private jet with a NASCAR legend in it. Can you imagine the headlines? If I appreciate they might not have known that, but even so, it just. I mean, that wouldn't make sense. If they're testing things, they're not going to just go right up to it. You would hope they wouldn't go right up. But as you say, 1999, we didn't have Starlink back then, did we? We didn't have some. I don't think we even had drones back then. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, yeah. Did you talk to anybody about it? I mean, we know that even now there's still a fair bit of stigma around it. Back then, I can imagine it was a hell of a lot worse. Is this a conversation that you had with people, or did you keep it yourself?
I kept it, between Jason and his family and my family, and that was really it. And you're exactly right. And there still is, not as much, but there still is a stigma. And I'm not saying it was alien. I don't know if it was or not. But if you call a UFO a UFO and people look at you like you're crazy, well, it was certainly a unidentified flying object. It was not a reflection. There was
Yeah.
something, there was something there. And I think that's a little bit of why, and you would know better now, but UAP is basically the same thing, but maybe doesn't have as much, attached to it. But um, there's a lot of things that we don't know, especially now, especially with the drones that were over New Jersey. I believe that our government knows a lot more than they tell us, and I wish that we knew.
Mhm.
I wouldn't freak out. I know that there was something going on. I know there wasn't a private individual just
Mhm.
flying a few drones over over New Jersey. And the same thing with some of the UAP. You're talking about military pilots that are seeing things that are unexplainable,
Yeah.
that defy anything that human that humans couldn't stand, the kind of G forces with the way they move it, and change directions and all that stuff. So it's very interesting. And I'll say once again, I'm not saying that was an alien spaceship that we saw, but it almost seems like it was taunting us. I mean, it came toward, we converged, we were moving toward it, and it was coming toward us
Yeah.
at the same time, and it got right to us, and then it starts going away from us, and it really had to be going pretty fast to pull away from us like it did. So it was really interesting, but I never really shared it. Something came up. You talked about the stories of my career and how I got started. My son Matt has was after me to do a book, and so we're working on this book and we're doing a lot of promotions. Of the book's still probably a year out, but we're over halfway finished with it, and he is encouraged me to do more podcasts and stuff, kind of promoting the history and whatnot. And so I was just doing a podcast with a friend of ours the other day that was kind of into all kinds of crazy things, and he said you should tell him that story, and so we put the story out, and of course it's getting a lot of traction because, like you say, it's like it's just very, very unexplained, and you just don't see that kind of thing every day, and you never ever get any kind of explanation, so it always makes you wonder.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it does. It's I mean, obviously I'm sort of very deep in it at the moment, so I'm hearing stories and experiences from all over and seeing footage as well from all over. But it was really interesting. You made a comment about this almost taunting. I know that Professor Gary Nolan, who's quite into the subject as well, does a lot of sort of talking on the subject, said that in some cases they, whatever they are, seem to have a sense of humor. And I always thought that that was really fascinating, like because it's such a human thing, isn't it? A sense of humor, and to attribute that to whatever this is. I found really fascinating. But it's interesting that you made that link, the sort of taunting and almost jokerish sort of thing. It's yeah, that's interesting. Just one point back. I know you said that you couldn't quite make out the shape of it because it was just a light. Did you get a perception of the size as it sort of came closer or further away? Was there anything that gave you an idea of how big it was?
It's one of the odd things about it right off was it seemed like a bigger light than a landing aircraft, aircraft landing light, even when it was out in the distance. And so the light was larger, and obviously as it got closer, it was way larger. I mean, it seemed to me like it was like a small aircraft size. It wasn't like a light on an aircraft, but this was a substantial size light. Um, and of course, when I first spotted it, it was way off, and that's why I was able to spot it. But there was not first. There's two things. First of all, the altitude was level with ours, around 18,000 feet. So you didn't look up to see it; you looked straight out, and so it was above Miami lights, and it was below what any stars would have been, and there were no stars showing because we had a real high cloud cover that night. So when I saw it, I thought, first I saw it, I just thought, well, that's an airplane with a landing light. But as it gets closer, it doesn't have all the other distinguishing figures. And then, once it got really close, it was not, it was too big to be, uh, aircraft landing lights by any means. So, yeah, it just really blew us away, and it made me feel uh, sort of justified in what I was seeing because Jason was like,
Yeah.
oh, he had the presence of thought to grab his camera, which he had in his flight bag, which was sitting there right next to us. So it was, that sort of validated what I was seeing. So I didn't question
Yeah.
what I had seen.
That would be a great photo in the book. Even just a flash, that would be such a cool photo.
Yeah.
I wonder if he
Yeah.
still has it. Yeah, you make a really good point about the Navy pilots and stuff. And Commander David Fravor, he's like he was a Top Gun. He would train the Top Guns. I think he was like a flight instructor for the Top Gun pilots. Like you don't get any higher than that, do you? They don't get any more credible.
Right.
And he's saying, look, we can't do this. This isn't something that we can do. And going back to the late 90s, it's just fascinating. But then we've got similar stories, haven't we, from history, from World War II, the Foo Fighters with these, glowing lights in the sky. Certainly no Starlink back then, or drones, or.
Yeah.
I'd love to know. I think we're ready. I mean, certainly half of America, I know that's the stats, like half America believe in UFOs. So, the world's not going to turn upside down, is it?
No, no, I think we can handle it. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, and I just just discovered uh, your Instagram and your podcasts and all, and so I've just got started. I've kind of went through your Instagram a little bit. It's very, very interesting. I look forward to taking a deeper dive. Uh, just interesting things that happen, and it's cool that you're covering all this and compiling it in one site and one spot, because people are interested, and like nobody's saying, I didn't say I saw green men, but
Mm.
I am saying I saw. I
Yeah.
kind of sometimes I say I know what I saw, I just don't know what I saw.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of, is I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
Is what is the thing. And there's a lot of interesting stuff out there that makes you wonder.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that's what makes you more credible, isn't it? If somebody says, "I know exactly what it was from here, and that's what it was," and it, not that I'm not suggesting that's not true, but it just for people on the outside, they look at that and they go, oh, "They've got no credibility. I'm not listening to that because they know for certain, and who are they to know?" But if people say, "Look, this is what I experienced, and this is my experience, and as a pilot, I know this," and I can't say what it was, but I can certainly say what it wasn't based on what I know. And that's, that's all you can ask for. And that helps us put the pieces together, doesn't it? To try and figure out what it could be. And I think that's the fun part. It's a mystery, you know.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I love it. I really enjoy it. Thank you for the kind words about the Instagram account as well. And I think for me, it's just everything that I find interesting, putting it all together, and then everyone's like, "Oh, I didn't know about that case," and then they tell me about this and go, "That's interesting." I'll share that with people, and you realize that there's stuff all over the world that just perhaps you don't see because it's a different language and the algorithms just give you English or American English, and so you don't get it. Necessarily, unless like me, all of my algorithms is just UFO related UAP stuff. So I get I get everything now, as you can probably imagine. But yeah, it's fascinating. Fascinating.
There's so much yet to learn. We think we're such an advanced civilization at this point in time, but when you look back, like you say, all the way back, you can look as far back as you want, and there's so much that we don't understand, and that science has, uh, some science has been debunked now or questioned all the way back. And I mean, if you look at, look at a lot of the old texts. I mean, there's a lot of lights coming from the sky
Yeah.
in old
Yeah.
texts, all the
Absolutely.
way back. And so I don't know. There's so much to learn,
Yeah.
and I don't know. If you want to talk about, if you want to ask me, do I believe that intelligent, or do I believe that life only exists on Earth? It's like, so you're going to tell me that the universe goes for infinity, right? And it's billions of years old. And this is the only place, you know? And even beyond that, is this the only place that intelligent life, it would even be hard for me to believe if the universe is that massive, how could this be the only place
Yeah.
that life exists?
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. It goes against the science that we do know. I think that it's so infinite that we can't even understand how big it is, let alone understand what could be out there and or even here. We don't understand about could there be dimensions, different dimensions, all sorts of different things, different theories that are possible that we're so primitive. We're just monkeys walking around, really, aren't we, that have managed to make an iPhone, you know? So yeah, I mean, I hope we get some answers that get us a bit closer to some kind of understanding. But it's fun. It's fun trying to figure it out. It
It
really is.
sure is.
Yeah. Mark, where would people come and find you? If people want to come and see your stuff, your photos and videos and some of your old bits and pieces from your NASCAR days, where would they come? Have you got social media?
I do. I have personal social media, which is one Mark Martin, um, and that's my personal account. But if someone wants to really see the historical videos, my son Matt runs Mark Martin Archive uh, on uh, on Instagram, and that's the really one. He posts. He does a post every day. He's done it for I don't know 700 days straight. And he posts great video footage and old stuff. So that's Instagram Mark Martin Archive. So I highly suggest checking that out because he's a historian and so he's done a great job with that site.
Yeah, awesome. Superb. Well, look, thank you so much, Mark. I really, really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy, and I appreciate you sharing your story as well. I know it can be a bit weird, getting the stigma's still there, and we get that, and so I'm really appreciative, and I know that the audience will be as well for telling the story. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you, and you keep up the good work.
We'll do. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Take care
I
of yourself,
appreciate
Mark.
you. Thank you.